This bulletin just into WNJS Radio. The Federal Aviation Administration reports that a plane carrying 25 persons crashed tonight in southwest Mississippi. Among those aboard, the Lynyrd Skynyrd rock group.
Still no identifications. The plane, a twin-engine prop model, went down in the southwestern corner of Mississippi, not far from the Louisiana line. Authorities say access to the heavily wooded, swampy area is very difficult.
An FAA spokesman says he received a report of multiple fatalities and some survivors in the crash of the Convair 240. He said the plane was en route from Greenville, South Carolina to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, when it crashed 2 miles northeast of Gillsburg, Mississippi.
Helicopters dispatched from New Orleans and Jackson, Mississippi, carried at least a dozen doctors and medical technicians to the crash scene. The plane was carrying 25 persons, including the 7 members of the band, their backing singers.
He said police and a rescue squad are on the scene. That's a plane carrying 25 persons crashed tonight in southwest Mississippi. Among those aboard, the Lynyrd Skynyrd rock group.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing today? Here I am I think I'm outside of Gillsburg, Mississippi. The GPS on my car took me in a really weird way to get where I am. The location of the Lynyrd Skynyrd plane crash in 1977, there's a huge monument to it now, and apparently there's lots of giant signs telling you where to go to that monument. But I put in a different address of where the crash actually happened, and it took me right here to this bit of a forested area that looks like it's private property. It doesn't look like it's private property, actually. And I've heard that the plane crash actually happened on private property. I can't tell. I'm going to take a little walk over and see what I can see here, and then find the monument, wherever that is. I thought that's where I was headed, but I went through all these back roads to get here. I didn't come off the main highway. It's very bizarre. I did a video on Lynyrd Skynyrd and their lives. I did their childhood home, the Van Zant boys, and then I did the Hell House, high school. Then I visited their graves. Even visited Lynyrd Skynyrd, the gym teacher who they got the name from, his grave. And what was amazing about that was, I'm a Lynyrd Skynyrd fan, and at the time I was, a fan. But a few weeks after I put it up, it must have got posted or something in a Facebook group or something. I'm not sure, because the views took off, and I got message after message from hardcore Lynyrd Skynyrd fans that know way more than I do, and every one of them was so sweet and so nice, and it was like such a fan community and like a family, and they were messaging me, and I'll never forget that, because it was a little, it's not out of my wheelhouse to do graves and where famous people lived, but I didn't know much about Lynyrd Skynyrd other than the hits at the time, and so, but I wanted to do a video on them because I found the story fascinating, and I just love that outpouring, and I hope I can do that again with this video for Lynyrd Skynyrd fans. And people who don't know them, you should get into Lynyrd Skynyrd, because I was just listening to them now. I was listening to the great hits on the way here. I ended with Freebird. Sorry, I had to, just as I pulled up. Let's see what we can see over here. This is Mississippi. It's a little swampy. I gotta be careful, because of, you know what, chop chop, alligators. But I think this is the actual location, but we're gonna go to the monument too. And I think the monument must be around the corner or something. I really don't know. We're going to find out together. I'm not sure if it was here. They were on their way from South Carolina to Baton Rouge. And I don't know if this is the exact location right here. I wish that guy would have stopped and given me some info. Let's take a look. It is a little swampy and yeah, it's a little too nasty to go through that. It doesn't look so bad, but it looks like deep mud. And I'm not afraid of deep mud at all, but I don't know. We can see pretty much. So this might be the actual location. This is the address that it took me to. That's online for the actual very spot where the plane crashed. That's the opposite side of the street, and that's just an empty field. Well, not empty, but there's more trees, and they did crash into trees. Especially right over there, it gets a little more dense. But straight ahead, right where I stopped my car, this is the exact point when I said the accident was, right there, on that side.
Well, when this train ends,
I thought it it was very bizarre because I was looking for signs that said Lynyrd Skynyrd Monument, Lynyrd Skynyrd Monument this way, that they've erected in the past couple of years, because the monument's relatively new, and this is just some crazy little road in the middle of Mississippi. But this is the road, and there's no signs. I want to see those signs and include them. I hope to find them. Okay, let's keep going. As you can see on this side, it's now a lot flatter, but this is the side of the road, Easley Road here, and it's a complete swamp and dense trees right over there. I've just stopped about a minute from where I was just parked. It's a lonely stretch of road, and it's definitely, the monument's pretty close because it's on. I heard it was on private property, but you can see down in here. I mean, it's marshy and swampy. That's swamp. That ground will give way. But they were cruising with no engines for a good 20 minutes, skimming the top trees out here until it finally came to a crash. I thought this was interesting. I just passed I've been passing so many small cemeteries in the Deep South here, but this one is definitely different. 4 caskets, 4 burials here, that's it. I can't see the name on them. Bertha Dawson on that one. Now I'm looking for, I just talked to a gentleman. I can't say how much the people in the South are just beautiful. It's so nice. Always so nice. He told me to look for a big white house. And that was a house that has been standing for a hell of a long time, because Union soldiers, when they came through here, they did not burn it down out of respect for the people in the area. Hello. And see, they wave. And he said the monument's right past, and the plane crashed right where the monument is in the gully. So where I was just filming seems to be completely off on everything I just said. And normally I wouldn't include that, but I think I'm going to include in the video because I believe him totally, but I don't know. I did some really deep digging about the actual crash site. And I thought the monument was a bit further away from it. So I'm still kind of thinking it happened more in that wooded area, marshy area, but let's find the monument. I was doing a lot of research on it, and I just kind of thought that was the exact spot, but the monument's up this way. I'm going to look for the big white house. I thought that's interesting to see. 4 graves. And here we are. Another cemetery right across the street, but that's a big white house. It looks like it's been around for quite a long time. Alright, I think we're close. Well, we are definitely in the right spot for the monument now. It's right up here. What's crazy about this, I'm going to read everything that's written on that monument for you. I'm going to read it out loud. I just did a video about Patsy Cline, and about her plane crash, and what I talked about on that was the fact that, you know, they shouldn't have flown in that weather. They should not have flown in that weather. And this plane that Lynyrd Skynyrd was flying on was such an old plane, and one of the engines had just caught fire on the previous flight that they were on, and they called it the Calamity plane or something, or the Clampett plane. And Cassie Gaines did not want to go on that flight. She said she would never get back on that plane again, and they convinced her. She's a young backup singer. Now, I mean, so preventable it seems. It's just so frustrating. You know, they pushing yourself to get to the next show, I guess, but they were going to rent a Learjet after that. I mean, they were huge. And they're flying around this rickety plane, and their tour manager was flying around commercial. But here it is.
Well, take your time. Don't live too fast.
A lot of history of them, I think, from what I can see. So we'll get through this together, reading it, because it's going to be hard, but I mean, for me to just show you it. All I saw was treetops. Billy Powell, keyboardist for Lynyrd Skynyrd. Let me get away from this glare. The flight was doomed, but that autumn day had otherwise been beautiful, with the late afternoon light slowly fading to dusk in the sky from which the plane fell. In the warm, early evening of October 20th, 1977, a chartered, twin-engine prop plane carrying members and crew of the popular music group Lynyrd Skynyrd crashed in the forest near this marker. Several passengers were killed, including the charismatic frontman and founder, Ronnie Van Zant. Eyewitnesses on the ground had sighted a plane flying low, much too low, over the treetops. By the time the plane hit the trees, word was already spreading in this corner of Amite County, Mississippi. Within moments after the crash, as evening descended, farmers, hunters, and other volunteers converged in this area, carrying blankets, flashlights, and other tools for what they reckoned would be a grim, urgent undertaking. The tragedy occurred because the plane had run out of fuel, so there was no fire or smoke to signal to the rescuers the crash's exact location in the wooded obscurity. However, a helicopter had been dispatched to the emergency, and it was from this chopper hovering above the trees that the volunteers were able to track down the downed plane. In the darkness, the main light available to the first responders was the giant spotlight beaming eerily down from this helicopter that floated above the wreckage for a long time while rescuers worked below. The absence of fire, plus the speedy actions of the volunteers on the ground and the medical staff who assisted them at local hospitals, were factors behind most of those aboard the plane surviving. But among the dead were lead singer Ronnie Van Zant, guitarist Steve Gaines, backup singer Cassie Gaines, of course Steve's sister, assistant tour manager Dean Kilpatrick, and I'm so sorry did not remember that name earlier, pilot Walter McCreary, and co-pilot William Gray. 20 of the 26 passengers survived, most with serious injuries. If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? Of course, we know what song that's from. Rise of the Simple Man. In 1964, Lynyrd Skynyrd began humbly in Jacksonville, Florida. The founding members jokingly named the band after a gym coach, Lynyrd Skynyrd. Eventually, after numerous police interruptions of the band's low and rowdy practice sessions, the group moved their rehearsals outside the city limits to an unair-conditioned one-room cabin they nicknamed the Hell House, which I went to on my previous video. It's just unreal being out there. It no longer exists, but there's remnants of it. In the sweltering southern heat, the band solidified as a tight musical unit. Guitarists Gary Rossington, Alan Collins, and Ed King formed what became known as the three-guitar attack. Billy Powell provided keyboard and piano accompaniment. Bassist Leon Wilkeson and drummer Bob Burns established a backing for it all. Helming the show, Ronnie Van Zant sang about fighting or loving with equal passion. In 1973, their debut album, Lynyrd Skynyrd, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd, announced the group to the world. Like other albums to come, this introductory work contained well-crafted yet musically unpretentious songs for and about the common man. Tracks like Simple Man, Tuesday's Gone, Give Me 3 Steps, and what would become an anthem for fans across the globe, Freebird, demonstrated the band's ability to mix melody with hard-driving rock and roll. In the few short years leading up to the crash, Lynyrd Skynyrd released music that has become a permanent part of the rock lexicon. Their self-titled debut, followed by 4 other studio albums: Second Helping, Nothing Fancy, Give Me Back My Bullets, and Street Survivors. This last album, released just 3 days before the plane crash, would eventually reach the highest record chart ranking of all their work. Lynyrd Skynyrd emblem below. And I should mention Steve's Street Survivors. The album came out and it has the band members engulfed in fire on the front. And particularly Steve Gaines, you can see him. And at the request of his widow, their record company changed it to a more simpler album cover afterwards, out of respect. The last flight of Freebird is what this says. On October 20th, 1977, the band were in the early stage of an ambitious tour to promote Street Survivors, flying from Greenville, South Carolina, where they had played a show the night before, to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to a scheduled concert that would never be. The members of Lynyrd Skynyrd had every reason to feel elated. They now performed for larger audiences throughout the United States and beyond. The checks were bigger. Assistants attended to them like royalty. They were in their 20s. They must have seemed invincible. While the group were in top form, their chartered air transportation was tragically not. The day before the doomed flight, suspicions about the plane, a Convair CV-240, were apparent. The company that owned the alien aircraft had scheduled it for maintenance soon, and some band members had considered taking a commercial flight to their next performance. But alternate flight arrangements were never made, and repairs would never come. On its final flight above the thick green canopies of trees that cover this part of the state, the aircraft began to run out of fuel. Thinking they would never make the airport at Baton Rouge, the pilots aimed the sputtering machine toward a closer airfield in Macomb, Mississippi. But even that emergency objective was too far. When the aircraft stalled and glided lifelessly down into the trees, one witness reported the sound it made was like the boom boom booming of railroad cars colliding during hookup. Near the tree thick site of the crash stretched an open pasture where the desperate pilots had hoped in vain to make an emergency landing. At the accident, many of the rescuers in the heated rush of the moment did not recognize the victims among the wreckage were members of the band Lynyrd Skynyrd. One of the rescuers recalls wondering, what's a bunch of hippies doing on an airplane? They don't look like they can afford a ticket. Even some who recognized the band may have been confused in their excitement. One of the witnesses at the scene informed others nearby, that's Lynyrd Skynyrd's plane, but don't worry, I think Lynyrd made it out okay. 'Cause I'm free as a bird now, and this bird you cannot change. Apparently Ronnie was asleep when the plane started to go down. They woke him up, and he went and got a pillow. He didn't want to be woken up first, then he went and got a pillow, and he walked through the center of the plane and then just sat down. He didn't have his seatbelt on too. He had premonitions about dying and talked often about it, from what I read. So there's Steve Gaines right there. It's a beautiful Cassie. I mean, just look how young they look, both of them. So vibrant, especially Cassie with the sun shining. It's just to think that somewhere back there it happened. It's so sad. Special thanks to Dwayne and Lola Easley. I believe that is Easy Road, and I think they own the property where it happened. It's insane. Here's the band here. Ronnie Van Zant, Dean Arthur Kilpatrick. I'm sorry I forgot your name, dude. Something else I'm going to read to you here. You can make a donation online. LENRDSKINNERDMonument.com. Look at that. Got a nice little canopy set up with chairs. People just want to come and sit out here. Lights shining onto it. Here we go. Reunion and legacy. The best of Lynyrd Skynyrd's songs never faded in the years since the crash. The music speaks to life in the American South, but touches on the universal themes of nonconformity, freedom, love, loyalty, betrayal, and loss, transcending geography to reach fans across time and location. In 1987, on the 10th anniversary of the crash, the band members who survived the accident, Gary Rossington, Alan Collins, Billy Powell, Leon Wilkeson, and Artimus Pyle, reunited for a tribute tour. And I believe when I was reading more, Artimus Pyle was the one that went into the cockpit to find out what was going on, and he saw death in the eyes of the pilots. He knew. And they came out and told everybody that the plane had no power and they were just gliding, and it took 20 minutes of it going down, and it was mostly in silence from what I know. This isn't written here, so I'm just people praying, people sobbing, but they said that it was quiet. So I think it was Artimus though who went into the cockpit and first learned that there was something horribly wrong. The pilots hadn't told them yet. They reunited for a tribute tour. Also on the tour were guitarist Randall Hall and earlier member Ed King. Collins, unable to perform on stage due to a prior car accident, acted as a maestro to the group. No one could completely fill the absence created by Ronnie Van Zant's untimely death, but his musical younger brother Johnny would ably take on the duties of lead singer for the reformed band. In addition to the timeless music they made during the band's classic era from 73 to 77, the group has recorded more studio albums and many live compilations with a changing roster of musicians since the accident. They were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2006. As of this marker's dedication, the band has sold over 28 million records in the United States alone. That number will surely continue to rise.
If I leave here tomorrow, would you still remember me? 'Cause I'm as free as a bird now.
So, somewhere right behind me. Like I said, so this is a spot where I showed you before I was wrong, and I know I wouldn't include that. I'm getting eaten alive here by the bugs in December. I wouldn't include that, but I thought, well, instead of making a new introduction and intro to the video, so sometimes I'm looking up things and I get onto obsessiveness and looking, and I'm thinking, well, maybe this is actually what really happened. But the gentleman down the street who told me about the monument was talking to me about it. He's been around a long time. He lived in these parts when it happened, he was telling me. So it was back there, and thank you to him. I didn't catch his name. Tuesday's Gone. That song should be played at the end of every movie. It should be played in every movie, whatever genre. It should be played at the end of every high school dance. Song is the perfect song. And after this video is over, I hope that you put that song on, Tuesday's Gone by Lynyrd Skynyrd. It is my favorite song of theirs. It's been that for a long time. And it should be written into law that it should be played at the end of every movie and at the end of every dance. High school or college dance or wedding. I'm glad I came out here. For Lynyrd Skynyrd fans, I'm glad I could come out here and do it for you. I'm sorry it's just me reading off of a big plaque. I wasn't expecting all that information. It was all in my head, and now I got to just read it. And this was a true honor for me to come out here because I've always wanted to come out here. And I can't believe I'm here. Thanks for watching. Peace out. And you come sign the guest book, which I'm trying to do with one hand. Wait a minute. It'd be a little gauche if I wrote YouTube, but at least I got to sign it. And that's Carl and Jerry right there. People are coming out here at the same time.
Tuesday's gone with the wind. Oh, my baby's gone.